Hey everybody, welcome back to the Land Development Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glick, and if this is your first time tuning into the show, our show is focused on having industry experts on to talk about their companies, their experiences in the industry, and today I'm excited to be joined on the show with Justin and Dani Frampton. Thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
For sure. So the first thing that I wanted to go into was learning more about how you got to this point now. We're in your beautiful office, new office here within the last not too long ago. Obviously, you didn't start here. You had to have built up to this point. And so let's rewind back a little bit to when the two of you started Frampton Homes, or maybe even before that, how you even got into the industry in general. And whichever one of you wants to start first, and we can kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, so starting with when really it all probably began when we started building homes. I was in the industry prior to that, but once we started building homes, Dani and I were first married at that point, and Dani was working for a corporate company, and it was just myself at the time. And as we progressed, Dani joined the team somewhere around 2009, 2010, I would say. Mainly doing new construction, custom homes. And then once Dani joined the team, we progressed into doing some spec homes where we would buy lots, build homes to sell. And then that continued to grow, and about 2018, I would say, we purchased our first piece of ground to subdivide into lots. It was more of a urban sprawl type development, larger lots, acreages with septic systems, not as much the infrastructure as like a higher density in-town development. Went really well, really enjoyed that process. It went hand in hand with the home building. It afforded us to get in front of more people, with us being the land developer and the home builder. And then probably the largest project that we've done about 3 years ago, we purchased 40 acres in the Grimes, northwest corner of Grimes, and developed it into 85 single-family homes, and have purchased some more land and plan to continue. Really enjoy the process, enjoy the kind of the marriage between the home building and that and the land development, as far as helping market the lots, but just really fun to see the whole process.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Like hearing the whole backstory and everything. And I'm interested from your standpoint, Dani, when you first came in to the company. What brought you in? Like, why did you come in and start being a part of the company?
Yep. I actually had a real estate background before I ever met Justin. So I got my real estate license when I was in college and worked through that. Once I graduated college, I got into more of the corporate side of things. So I had a lot of real estate knowledge from sales and the corporate side. And then once he started building on his own, it was a natural fit for me to leave corporate to come back to sales, and it just progressed from there as far as helping out with more business adventures.
Okay. Now I'm really interested with the two of you being married and in the business together. I think that brings with it some challenges. I think for me, not necessarily in the land development or building industry, but even having my wife help me with some of the things that I do with my business, it presents some challenges. And so I'm curious from both of your standpoints, how have you managed that? What are some of the challenges that you experience when, and how do you turn it off when you get home? Or do you,
I guess I'll start. That is the challenge of not knowing when not to be talking about work. It's just kind of natural. And for a married couple that work at two separate places, they still do talk about work, right? So it's what is the level of what's acceptable and what's not. But it's also what we both really enjoy. It's kind of a hobby too. So it's it tends to be the topic of conversation, regardless if we sometimes don't even realize we're talking about work when we talk about work. I would say there are times where it's, it's like one of us just really isn't in the mood to talk about work, and the other one maybe is super excited about something. So you gotta kind of have to, and with being married, sometimes it's easy to be a little too honest. But we've made it work, and it's really good. We're good about telling each other, like, all right, this is where we need to stop, or because we have 4 kids as well. Yeah. So ranging from the age of 13 to almost 3. So, they need our attention as well. So it's I think it's a good balance. I think it's, we're neither one of us are afraid to say, hey, this is where we need to focus our attention at this time. So,
yeah,
I would say we're a good balance for each other. He's a little more adventurous than I am, so sometimes I have to rein him in a little bit. But no, honestly, we inspire each other, I would say, is the good part. You just kind of, when one person's having a down day, the other one just kind of takes the lead and says, okay, let's pick it up and keep going. So I think it's actually encouraged us working together to be more adventurous with the risks that we take.
So how do you incorporate, speaking of the kids, so how do you incorporate them into the business? Because you see a lot in this industry, a lot of family businesses, right? So second, third, fourth generations now running home building and land development businesses. Do you think about that at all? And not that you have to get into specifics about it, but like, is that something that's on your mind and thinking about how at an earlier age the kids can be around the business and see how, how it operates and stuff, then ultimately if they choose to be a part of it, then they can be a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I would be very proud if our kids wanted to be a part of it. Certainly something that, we will help them out, but certainly not any direction we're necessarily pushing them. Our oldest daughter is probably the one that probably has taken the most interest just because of her age and starting to understand what we do. She's only in 8th grade, but has shared interest that she wants to be an architect. So obviously has, a relation to what we do, whether it's, for us or she goes somewhere else. But I think that has a lot to do with what she sees us do every day. And that poor girl has moved probably 12 times in her short life. So, she gets to see some of the trends and the things that in different neighborhoods that we've lived in and things like that. So, the other kids are probably a little young, but we certainly would love to see it, move forward and one of our kids be a major part of that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say kids of self-employed parents tend to have a little different outlook on how the world works. They're used to loading up in the car and running to appointments with us because when you're self-employed, you have to go sometimes. Like you said, our oldest daughter probably experienced a lot more of that than the younger children. She would go sit in open houses with us. She'd be, when we first started our company, she'd be in the pack and play as we're cleaning, getting things ready and just all those things. And she, yes, has expressed the most interest in a related field. Just kind of from experience, we have friends that are a little further ahead in their career, and I've seen how they've made it work. Their kids have come back to their company, but they came to work for us for a little bit, or a similar related industry, but worked maybe for somebody else before actually working for the family business. And I really thought that was a really good idea for kids to get a little life experience somewhere else first, but then hopefully come back and enjoy what we've worked so hard to build.
Yeah. I've seen that before and heard that many times of where, it's almost like the family really pushed them to say, go do something different.
Yes.
Bring an outside perspective back into our family business if you do choose to come back and work in the family company. So, I mean, those are all things for me personally that I think about. And I think just when you are working around your kids too, they're able to, see that work ethic. And I think sometimes one of the downsides is of, working away from them all the time is they don't necessarily, it's like make-believe. Like they don't see that you even do anything right. It's just like, what does mommy and daddy do? What do they do? And it's like, they don't know. So I like that aspect of it, of being able to have them being able to see it. And the youngest doesn't necessarily know really what I do. So, you'll get those questions like, what do you even do? Like what do you do all day? It's like, I promise I work. But look, so you mentioned a couple of your projects that you had worked on, over the years going back. I'm interested about if there's one project that like stands out in your minds. I know you've done a lot of projects, but like, is there one project that may stand out in your mind? Maybe there was a special circumstance about the project, or there was just a neat design that you did with a project or something like that you could kind of talk about a little bit.
I would probably say learning. So the land development that I shared that's on the northwest side of Grimes, learning that even though you think you take all of the right steps and you covered all of your bases, that's not always the case. When it comes to like Army Corps of Engineers, the DNR, things like that. So just really, kind of that school of hard knocks. Like you think you've got it all figured out and you think you've done all the right things and you haven't. So, that's the neat thing about this industry, I think. And as I imagine you interview more of the veterans in this industry, I really feel like it's a constant learning process. Like there's always something. There's, whether it's with contracts, whether it's within negotiations, whether it's within each municipality that you're working with, different subcontractors. There's no playbook. There's no, this is exactly how it's going to go, and this is what you can predict on Monday, and this is how it's going to end up on Friday. Can sometimes be the stressful part of it, but that's also, I think, the kind of the exciting part of it. So I probably didn't answer your question directly. I have one specific thing, but we did have a specific issue on this development that was brought to our attention after the fact, and it wasn't necessarily that we bypassed it. It just got brought to our attention a little bit later, and it was definitely something that moving forward, that T will be crossed every time moving forward.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have known any different. And it could have been the 10th development that I did that this happened on. It just so happened to be the very first development. So yeah, it's just all of the projects are unique, and present challenges and present rewarding, aspects of it. So that's that really keeps me going, I guess.
Yeah. And then Dani, from your perspective with, and we kind of jumped over this in the beginning and everything, but you obviously both play a specific role in the company, and we didn't really talk about what your roles are in the company. And so maybe first, what is your specific role? What do you do within Frampton Homes?
Yep. I'm more the business side of everything now. I've done about every role that there is. I started in sales, worked in design. We now have an in-house designer for Frampton Homes. And so now I really just do the back end, behind the scenes sort of thing. I'll still help out with design a little bit, but So for me, meaningful projects are a little bit different from having worked in the design very closely with homeowners. There's several of them that I can think of that were just very emotional times in those people's lives. And those houses just meant so much to them that, there's, in the last, how long we've been doing this, there's been a few of those, but so that's always fun to see.
Nice. And so you, I think you mentioned that so you started with the home building, you got into some of the land development projects, and you have more planned in the future. Along the way, has there been anybody that has helped you fast track certain things as far as because I imagine that when you're building homes and then you get into maybe your first project, that there might need to be some guidance or something that you can get in that process. Of course you can go and try to do some of this stuff on your own, but is there, and you don't have to say any names or anything like that, but have you had anybody that has helped, mentor you in this process?
Absolutely. There's, and that's another really unique thing about this business is you're certainly competitors with these other people, but it's you sit down and just going back to the situation that I was telling you about with Army Corps of Engineers and the DNR and things that where you think you've got everything figured out. And I never, when that came to light, I never hesitated to call certain people within the industry, that are developing right next to us or are developing in the same neighborhoods, and with 100% confidence that I would get their truly authentic response and help in the industry, veterans. And Scott Temple with Vista Development and Sonny Hall with Absolute Group, and guys that have just got a plethora of knowledge that are you can almost see the excitement of them helping you and teaching you and giving you their input. So it's just, that's what's really unique about this business, and it's fun, and I hope to pay that forward someday.
Yeah, no, that's I think what was interesting to bring up with that is, I think for people listening, I mean, you're going to have a variety of people listening, right? People who are veterans in the industry and stuff, but you're going to have some up and comers who are new to the industry listening through this. And I think that was something important to note for those individuals, is the fact that, you don't have to go at it alone and try to figure everything out. You'll, like you said, you're going to make mistakes regardless of whatever mentoring you have. It's just the nature of business in general, but being able to find, mentors who have been there, done that, and can share some of that information with you is, I can see how that's so beneficial. I mean, we do the same thing, obviously, in our business with having mentors help us in that space. So no, that's really, really interesting. And I think one thing I was going to ask as well, going back a little bit to on the just working in a business with your spouse. Is there anything from an advice standpoint that you would give somebody who's considering bringing their spouse into their business that they need to think about before making that decision?
I guess setting clear guidelines of whose responsibility is what is really the key. Those lines can get blurred pretty quickly, and that's when usually the arguments start. So if you can just define your roles, it should go pretty smoothly from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she hit the nail on the head. But yeah, it's the expectations and the communication. I mean, communication is so important. I mean, if you're thinking it, you've got to say it. Don't hold it in. Don't hold it back. I mean, obviously, be respectful and professional. Obviously, that goes without saying. That's not going to matter whether you're business partners or not. But yeah, it can be very rewarding, but it can be very taxing. But I think, just like anything, the communication and being honest and setting boundaries for sure.
All right. One other question for you. If you could go back in business and change anything, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I would.
That's tough.
Yeah, that is a really tough one. But the only thing that I would probably say is, with being a small business owner and I never worked for another company before that, building houses. So the systems we very much learned as we went and have built on them and are continuing to build on them. So when you do that, and I think just the nature of the type of person who is a small business owner, it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to hire people. It's to give up some sort of responsibility. I would say, our biggest thing that we probably always were in much more need of an employee or help before we actually put that in place, for multiple different reasons. Not only just giving up the responsibility and giving up that control, quote unquote, but you certainly never want to hire somebody to turn around and fire them. So you're like, right. Okay, is this short term? Do we just muscle through this and wait, or do you start training now and then, move on? So I would say, not necessarily a regret, but I think things that we've learned along the way and that we probably could have done a little sooner that maybe would have helped us was, putting people in place and hiring the help. Okay. And the right people.
Yeah.
That sounds probably about like the only thing I can think of, like you said, it was learn as we go and trying to take the right risks and everything. And, looking back, you can't question that, because even if it didn't turn out exactly how you wanted, you learned. And so it led you to the next step. So, right. I would say, just learning to trust your gut and let go of some of the control, I guess, a little bit, kind of as he was saying. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question. It's tough because you're right. Mm-hmm. If every decision you made led you to this building you're in right now, mm-hmm. so you go back and change something. Who's to say you're going to be in the same building? It's that butterfly effect of changing something in the past. But always curious about that because I think we all have things that you look back on, and they were learning experiences is what they were.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, if I could have done that differently, I probably would have. But no, that's interesting, and I think pretty consistent with where my head's at as well. Okay, well, in closing, what's the best way for people who are listening into this to get in touch with the two of you? I don't know if that's just reaching out to you through your website, or do you have a certain way you like people to contact you?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. If they go to framptonhomes.com, it'll have a phone number and an email to contact either way. So whatever's easiest. If some people prefer to pick up the phone and call, or even text, email, or we're also on Facebook as well, Frampton Homes. So feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from anybody, whether it's for lots or a new home.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me on the show. And for those of you listening in, if you're not yet subscribed to the show, please click that subscribe button. And until next time.